What's going on, everybody? It's Barmine from Barmine Tech, and today we're going to be working on setting up our own Proxmox backup server. So I've made videos a couple times about how to back up Proxmox machines and use like the PyNAS to back up to. And it's been mentioned about why don't I use Proxmox backup server. And honestly, it's just because I didn't really know about it. I know I glanced at it a couple times while I was scrolling through the Proxmox site to download the PvE version, but never really looked at the backup server. So I looked into it, and I think it's a really good option, so we're going to set one up today. So let's get right into it. The first thing we're going to want to do is come over to the Proxmox site, and you just get to there by going to proxmox.com, or you just Google it, and you'll find it. And on the home page, you'll see we have virtual environment, backup server, and mail gateway. Today we're going to be working with backup server, so we just come over to downloads, and we're going to select backup server, and over here we're going to scroll down to ISO installer. You're just going to download that, and that's how we're going to work with it. From there, we're going to open up Barmine Etcher, and when that loads up, you're going to flash from a file. You're going to come in and you're going to select your Proxmox backup server. So make sure you select the backup server, not the VE. So the backup server current version is 3.1-1. So you would select that. You would select your target. So you would just pick the USB drive you're going to and flash it. And after it's all flashed, you're able to plug it into whatever machine you're going to be running off of and install the backup server on there. Now for me, I'm actually using the machine that was my first PC. I've repurposed it a couple times, and I used it a couple years ago as a Docker server. I strictly ran Docker off of it. Then I virtualized Docker and changed that again. But now it's been sitting there. I figured it's a good chassis to use, has decent parts in it, so I'm going to use it as my backup server. So I have a 128 gig SSD to run the OS off of. I might partition it to use it for whatever else, but I might not. And then I have an 8 terabyte hard drive that was originally used for my Plex server, so we're going to wipe that, and then that's going to be used to save my backups, so I have multiple backups on there. You could use whatever kind of machine you want. You could use a mini PC, you could use a bigger PC, you could use whatever you have. As long as it has the hardware that's pretty decent, and I think there should be a requirement sheet so you could check when, the hardware requirements, but figure as long as it has, like a 4-core i5 or whatever, or i3, maybe 4 to 8 gigs of RAM, should be plenty, I would think. It's just running Linux, so it's not a big deal, but let's get into the install. So after it's all done and flashed and you put it into your new PC, you might need to make sure that it's in the regular USB ports. For me, my USB 3 ports either aren't connected or they're not working. So make sure you're in like the USB ports in the back of the PC, if it's possible. You're also going to need a keyboard, and then from there you could go into the boot manager. So it's usually F10 or F11 or delete. You'll have to see whatever it says on your boot menu for the BIOS, but we're just going to come down, we're going to select USB disk. And we're going to boot from the USB disk, and here we are installing Proxmox. So the install is really the same as installing the VE, but we're just going to do it this way. So you can scroll through, you have advanced options, whatever it is. I'm going to do graphical because that's the easiest. And it's going to start doing the install. So we're getting one of our first prompts here, and it's going to be the EULA, so it's going to be if you agree. I don't have a mouse plugged in, so I'm just going to try using my keyboard. We're going to hit I agree. And here we're going to come up to where we want to install the backup server. So you can see in here we have my 2 disks. I know it's kind of hard to read, but we have the 120 and that. So let's see if I have options. So I could actually partition if I want, but I don't think I want to. So I think we're just going to do it like this. Just want to double check. So that looks good. So I'm going to hit next. I'm going to do our country. You just fill that in. And then you're going to put in your time zone. I'm going to put in for my time zone. And after you get that all done, you can just confirm your you can confirm your keyboard layout and then hit next again. Again, I'm just using the keyboard, so it's a little tricky for me at the moment. You're going to set up a password. Make sure you remember this password because it is going to be the password to access the portal. So it is important to remember. And then just enter in your email address. Hit next again. Now in here we're going to work on our networking, so we can select which network adapter we want to use. So after the installer runs through, it's going to pop up and say it's good to reboot, and if you checked off to automatically reboot it well, or you'll have to reboot it yourself. And after it powers through, you'll see that we get to the shell, and it's going to give us the address to go to. So it's going to be whatever you gave the machine and the port, and I believe it's 8007. So we'll go log into that. I'm going to pull out my USB with the installer on it and my keyboard because we no longer need that, and then I'm going to move over and we're going to use the web console. So let's get into that. Alright, now after some troubleshooting, it seems I used the wrong network card, so I had to mess with that, but make sure you get yours online with whatever NIC you're using. When you're ready to go, it's going to be, the portal's going to be at whatever the address you gave it, so mine's .22 and the port is 8007. We're at the security warning, so we're going to continue. And now we're good to log in, so you're trying to give it root, and whatever the password you gave it, and I just gave it the wrong one. And after you give it the right password, you'll get the no subscription warning, which is fine, and then here we are in the backup server. So taking a look at the dashboard, it's very similar to the PvE version of Proxmox. It's going to give us our disk info, our memory info, CPU usage, IO delay, all that stuff, swap, everything you think it would. And then in here we have some different options. So we have your subscription. We have a subscription, so if you had a subscription, you can do one. There's the shell access, which is nice. You have tape backups if you want to do tape. So going through to take a look, we're going to go to storage and disks. And here it's going to list you 2 drives or however many drives you have. I have my SSD that I'm using for my OS. And then I actually have my drive that I'm using for my backup. So you can actually check the smart values. So we can see how long these drives ran for. I know how long these drives ran for, they're okay. But in here we're going to wipe out this drive because this does have old data on it, so I'm going to wipe it. Make sure you wipe the right drive if you're going to do it. I'm wiping my 8 terabyte drive. So we're going to wipe that. We're going to get it nice and clean, ready to use. So that's done. And we might need to initialize it again, so we are. So we're going to do initialize this with GPT. Not ChatGPT. That's all done. So now we have our drive ready to use and we're ready to set it up for backups. So now that we're ready to move on, we need to set up a ZFS directory, or you can use a regular one, it's fine. I'm going to use ZFS just because it's a little bit better. I know I'm only using a single disk and it's an HDD, so I don't know if it'll really have any performance benefit, but that's okay. We're going to click on ZFS, create ZFS. We're going to name it, so I'm going to use it for backup, so we're going to call it that. I'm going to leave these all default, and it's only a single disk, so that's all we have. We're going to check off my box, and then we're going to create. Then we're going to give that a second to run, and then we'll be back when that's done. So now you can see my ZFS is made, and it's running. It's able to be there. And now if you look under data store over here, you see backups is there. So it is all ready to be used now. So now that we're ready to add our backup server to Proxmox, we're going to come over to data center. So this is in your actual PvE host, not the backup one. This is going to be your one that runs all your VMs and stuff. You're going to come to data center, you're going to come to storage, you're going to click add. We're all the way down to Proxmox backup server. So we're going to call it backup server. You can name it whatever you want. We're going to do server will be the IP address. So mine is .22. Yours is going to be whatever your server IP address is. The username should be root@pbs unless you changed it. So it'll be root@pbs. Your password is whatever you gave the root account. The data store is going to be whatever you just named your pool. So mine is backups. So that's what mine's going to be. And then the last thing is we need a fingerprint. So we're going to come back over to the dashboard, show fingerprint, copy, and we're going to paste that in. And now we're going to add it, and we should be able to link up our PvE to our server. And I'm having an issue. Alright, so I looked into the error I was getting about it not being able to connect to the drive. It wasn't authorized, it didn't have permissions. And it seems that there either is some sort of bug, or you just have to add an additional account for the permissions. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now to fix that. So we were trying to add the Proxmox backup server, and if I add an ID, so I'll do backup, and then you put in your server, and then I was putting in root at PBS, and then my password, and then the data store, which was backups. Now, I was getting the error that it couldn't authorize, of course, and you gotta put the fingerprint in too. That's when the error that couldn't authorize, and it seems that to fix that, we gotta come back to the backup server. We need to come to configuration. So you need to come over to access control, and in access control, you're gonna go to user management, and then we're going to add, and here you could add an account, so you could do backup, or you could do backup admin, or whatever you want to do. So just do admin. We're going to fill out the credentials. Set it to never expire, or if if you want to, you can. And then we're going to hit add. So now from here we can go over to our data store, our backups data store, and we can do permissions, and we could do add user permission. We could select our user, so our new one's admin, and their role could be admin. So now you can see admin at PBS has permission to the backups for the data store. So you can come over here, we're going to edit this to admin, and then you should be able to add it. If you're not, then just make sure you have your permissions right and you have the right account. So make sure whatever you make the new account would be that at PBS and the right password you just set for it. And then you're all set. You could add it, come back to your dashboard, show your fingerprint, grab your fingerprint, put it in there, and you're all set. And then you'll connect the storage. So now you can see I have my Proxmox backup storage in here. I expand it to Proxmox backup server. So now it's ready to actually be used as a backup server. So if I come over to the backup tab, you see I made a couple jobs to back up. So in my case, I have 8 terabytes of disk space. So if I come to backups, I do a summary. You can see I have 7.85 terabytes of storage to use. So I could back up my machines for a while, and I can actually run good backups now. So it's really simple. If you come back into the PVE of Proxmox, we're in the backups tab, we're going to hit add. And in here, you can select what you're going to do. So for no, we're going to do all storage. You can kind of come in and you want to select your new backup server. So whatever you named it, backup or whatever you called it. And here in the schedule is what you can schedule how you want it to run. So it depends on how you really want your backups to run. You could do every day. You could do every 2 hours. You could do every 30 minutes, Monday to Friday. You could do weekly, monthly, or pick the days. So let's for this one just say I want to do Sunday at 1 a.m. So you can change the selection mode so you can include the selected VMs, or you can expand. You can just do all, excludes, and then you would just select the ones you don't want to back up, however you want to do it. So for me, I want to back up all of these. So I'm doing includes the selected VMs. So I'm going to back up all these VMs and containers. You can set notifications. I never really got that to really work too well, so I'm not going to really mess with it. And then for mode is going to be what it's going to vary. So we're going to click help, and it's going to come over here and explain it. So stop mode is going to be the best one to do. It's actually going to use QEMU to stop the container or the virtual machine so we can get the best backup. It takes a little bit of time and it has a little bit of downtime, but if you schedule your backups in the middle of the night, it shouldn't really affect you. This will be your best backup method. Suspend is a decent one as well. And snapshot's going to be the most basic, and it's not going to really give you the best backup. So it's really your choice of what you want to do. I'm using stop for mine, and my backups are going to run in the middle of the night, so it's not going to really affect me. So I'm going to do stop, and then we're going to do retention. So here in retention, you can either select to keep all your backups, or you can select to keep however many you want. So you can either keep the generic keep last. You could do how many dailies you want to keep, how many monthlies you want to keep, hourlies, weeklies, or yearlies. It really depends on how you want to set it up. I usually just do keep the last 3, hoping that within the last 3 there'll be a good one. And then you can just create the backup job, and now it will run on the schedule. Or you can select it and you can run the job now. I'm not going to do that right now because it's going to lock up the server for a few minutes, so that's that. One thing to keep in mind when you're going to back up your VMs on Proxmox, however big the disk space is on the VM, it's probably how big the files are going to be for the backup. So if you have a 75 gig VM, your backup files are going to be 75 gigs. If you have a 500 gig VM, the backup files are going to be about 500 gigs as well. So keep that in mind when you're going to back them up, and the target storage for your backups. Make sure it's big enough. I did it once where I almost backed up my Open Media Vault for my Plex by accident, and I almost backed up 4 terabytes to a 300 gig hard drive. So just keep that in mind when you're going to do your backups. Make sure you actually have a big enough hard drive to store your backups for the VMs you want to save. But that's the basics of Proxmox backup server. So let's just close that tab out. We're coming back over here. You can see I actually have a backup I ran, and I'll run another one really quick. So this one's a, let's see, let's find a small machine. So this machine that I have right here is pretty small. So let's go to backup, and we'll click backup now. I'm going to target backup, so that's my storage, and then my mode I'm going to do stop because I want a good backup. I'm going to leave the notes the way they are, and we're going to hit back up. You see it's going to automatically go into backing this machine up, and it's going to write it straight over here to my backup server. And you can see we're using a little bit of memory. We're using some CPU and some memory, and we're going to let this rock. It's going to do its thing, and we'll come back when it's all done. Alright, so this backup's been running for a while, and it's going to keep running for a while. And when it's all done, it's going to say task OK in the bottom. So if you're going to watch your backups run, just wait for it to say task OK, just like it does with any other task you try to do in Proxmox. If not, you're just going to schedule it. Just let them run overnight, and then you can check on them in the morning after they run. In the logs, if anything goes wrong, it'll actually have like an error in the log, and you can look at the backups and see that there's something wrong. But if I keep looking here, you can see like the PC's working, the backup server's running. It is working to back up. You can see it's backing up over here. It's backing up over here the VM, and it's all set. So it is working. So that's how we set a Proxmox backup server. I've been wanting to do this for a while, just so I have a better backup system, and now I have a secondary machine that's running a dedicated OS to just do the backups. I think it's really cool that Proxmox makes the backup server OS. And what I love even more is that it's a free software, and if you want, you can buy the support license in if you need it. But for a community-based OS, you could run all this, and it's great. I mean, Proxmox is a great hypervisor. I've been using it for about 2 years now, and now I'm going to run the backup server. And once again, it's a great software by Proxmox. So what do you guys do for backups? Do you guys use Proxmox backup server, or do you use something else to back up your VMs? I know some people use Veeam, or there's other options. So what do you use? Drop those below in the comments so we can see what everybody else uses. I want to thank everybody for watching. I do have a Discord server. You want to check it out. We've been talking in there. We're helping each other out and some stuff. I have a Twitter if you want to follow me on there. I'm not super active anymore, but I'll keep an eye out if you at me or anything. I want to thank everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.